Lance J Radio Show on Advent Sports Network.
We are back on Advent Sports Network, the Lance J Radio Show. We had a great panel a couple of weeks ago that broke down the NBA Finals. We had some predictions, and one side won, one side didn't win. So I'm going to get right into it. I got Whitley Phipps, who is a Golden State Warriors fan. I got Alan Bowles, who's been on the show quite a few times, big-time Cleveland Cavaliers fan. And I have Gian Alexis also joining us back, who's correspondent for ASN, a really good neutral individual with some serious sports knowledge. And we're just going to talk about the results of the NBA Finals. So I'm going to give you, Phipps, I'm going to give you the chance to bat first, man. To the victor goes the spoils. What did it feel like as a Golden State Warriors fan that's watched the process from drafting Curry, drafting Klay Thompson, getting Mark Jackson to coach, and really building that team from a team that was a 20-win team all the way to an NBA title after a 67-win season, really one of the best teams in NBA history?
Well, it first of all, it's a great feeling. You can talk for at least 11 more months, whatever trash and garbage you want to talk. But bottom line for me, is the way it got done. Stats went out the window. I think game plans went out the window, and it was all about two teams just trying to win. And like I said, I knew Cleveland wasn't going to go down without a fight. But in my eyes, I just thought the bench was going to be the major factor in why we would take the chip. So, again, I'm not talking too much because LeBron is an amazing athlete, amazing player, and I would love to have him on my squad, but he's the type of player right now that, in my eyes, always needs help. So right now they're going to say why he didn't get the help he needed and what help he'll get next year. So after the parade, I think I'm going to talk, get a couple new hats and a jersey, and I'm going to just sit the next year out until somebody dethrones us, man.
Okay. Alan, I had a chance to come up to Cleveland and actually watch Games 4 and Games 5 with you personally in your home. I know what the mood was like in the streets. I missed Game 6. Had to head back out to the West Coast. But what is the mood in the city with Cleveland not being able to close? Is it a mood of depression, or is it more of, hey, we got to within 2 games of a title with Della and with J.R. Smith and Shumpert, when Love and Kyrie get back, guaranteed chip next year?
You know, I mean, being a Cleveland sports fan, there's been a lot of depression from the drive to the fumble to the decision to the shot to, all these different things that have caused the city to be very anxious when it comes to our team being in a championship game. And then very depressed or upset when we lose or something bad happens to us from a sports perspective, i.e. the decision. But this time it was very, very different. I think the city really just embraced this team for the fight that they had. If you recall, we talked before the finals started, I believe, and I had a prediction of, the Cavs winning in 6, but that at the time was with Kyrie on the floor. And so, from my perspective, if I'm a Golden State fan, I mean, congratulations. I'm not going to hate on it, but at the same time, it's almost one of those championships with an asterisk next to it because we were without 2 of our 3 best players. That's equivalent to saying, what would Michael Jordan have done without Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman? Or what would Isaiah have done without Dumars and Lambeer? How would those guys have fared in a title game without two of their three best players? And so the city's actually optimistic. I mean, we really embraced the fight of this team, the fact that everyone counted us out as soon as we lost. And Golden State was nervous. Golden State was nervous. And as soon as we lost Kyrie, they thought they had it in the bag, and we fought them. We were up actually 2-1. And I think what you saw was the team was just fatigued. They just ran out of gas. Guys like Dele aren't used to playing those kind of minutes. JR is not used to being relied on as a secondary option. He kind of folded under the pressure. But LeBron was LeBron. And, I think in Game 6, though, he realized that they just didn't have enough because you kind of saw him take his foot off the gas in Game 6. And I think he just knew the writing was on the wall. And he just lived to fight another day. And, I think next year we're going to like I said in the first call, I didn't guarantee a championship this year, but I guarantee one next year.
So that's a pretty strong sports take, Alan. I'll let Gian kind of comment. You said that you feel like the championship has an asterisk because I disagree because they went through, if you look through, they went through the four other best players in the league other than Steph Curry. Went through Anthony Davis. They went through James Harden. They went through LeBron. I mean, they went through a great gauntlet of players to win this championship. So that, to me, that's a very strong statement to say that the championship has an asterisk. I know that Kyrie Irving's injury had a major impact on the series with the Cavs, but to win 67 games and go through really the best other players in the league en route to a title relatively in easy fashion, that seems a bit strong. What do you think about that, Gian?
I mean, I would strongly agree with what you just said. For me, I don't call it an asterisk. I mean, injuries happen. To me, injuries is just a part of sports. Like, everybody would like to be at 100%, but that's not the reality. I mean, Kyrie Irving played a lot of minutes game one, which, I mean, some people could say led to his injury. But, I mean, regardless of that fact, I still was going – the only reason why I sided with Golden State was because, number one, I didn't think Kyrie Irving was at 100%, which we saw he wasn't because he only played one game. And then, secondly, Golden State's depth kind of shone through. I don't give them an asterisk. I mean, you just kind of played with the hand you dealt, with the hand you've been dealt. I actually gained a lot of respect for LeBron in these finals. He kind of impressed me in a way that I've never seen, like a fire in this guy like I saw this time. Like he was just doing whatever he wanted to. He literally willed Cleveland to win 2 games with gimps in his lineup, like Dellavedova playing 40-something minutes.
Right.
And, I mean, to me, that kind of spoke volumes. My only other thing I want to just kind of add, as a Knicks fan, the J.R. Smith that I saw in a couple of those games was the J.R. that I remember at times.
Right.
In the previous session we talked about, I said to you guys, I was like, when J.R.'s on, he's on. But just as hot as he can get, he can be just as cold. And so I don't really think it's like Alan talked about, he's not used to being relied on. He just has games where he just gets out of it. Like, he'll drop 28 one night, and then the next night he'll have like 6 points. And you're just really confused about how somebody with his talent, but that kind of speaks to how streaky he is. So, I mean, I just kind of think it's not an asterisk. I just kind of think that, it just is what it is. They weren't at full strength, and that's why I didn't predict them to win to begin with. Now, if Kyrie Irving were healthy, I actually might have leaned towards Cleveland's side. But honestly, it was because, and if you roll the tape back, I did say because I don't think Kyrie Irving is healthy, I'm going to have to say Warriors in 6.
All right, so Phipps, you were jumping in. You had a comment, Phipps?
I just wanted to throw this in also, that anytime a team goes through the whole season ranked number 1, offensively and defensively, and then goes to the finals and wins the finals, it can't be seen as an asterisk. There's just no way in the world. I mean, even some of the pundits who did not see them winning had to admit at the end of the series that they were just, the Cavs were just overmatched, and especially when their bench had to come in and help their starters. It's not a matter of an asterisk. I know it hurts. It's just that's what it is.
Are you a budding dynasty, Phipps? Do you have dynasty potential? Is this a team that can go out and win 3 or 4 rings, or is this a one-and-done type situation like the Mavericks?
I am withholding my opinion on that right now. I don't want to seem too optimistic. The only thing I'm going to say is, barring injury, we're going to have the best backcourt in the league for a few years. There's just no doubt in my mind about that.
You are listening to the Lance J Radio Show on Advent Sports Network.
We are back on the Lance J Radio Show. I am with Minister Jason Bulgin from Cleveland, Ohio. He's talked about his time growing up in Toronto, his experience playing basketball both at Crawford Adventist Academy, also playing sports at one of the local Catholic schools. We've discussed the whole paradigm about Sabbath observation and kind of juxtaposing reverence with the actuality of is someone keeping the Sabbath if they choose to play sports, and where that puts them as far as exposure and the relationship with the Lord. I want to talk, Jason, and you can kind of expound on this if you want or not. I think your story is interesting because you became a father at a relatively young age, and you had to exhibit an extreme level of maturity that many individuals in their late teens, early 20s do not have to exhibit. If you could talk a little bit about that experience and how that prepared you for your ministry and the things that you're doing right now.
Well, I had my daughter in the 11th grade in high school, and being who I was and what I was, I had to take the hard road in terms of everything, the worst case scenario for me. So I got kicked out of the Adventist school. Mm-hmm. I eventually ended up having to go to adult learning, and then I didn't end up graduating with my class. Mm-hmm. I graduated a year later. I actually had come back to the school, and then they rescinded me coming back and kicked me out again. It was a whole lot of back and forth, but my attitude towards it was I was going to do whatever it took to finish and show them that this wasn't going to handicap me. Because in a way, when they kicked me out of school, they were basically handicapping me and saying that you're finished. Because I mean, there was no real rehabilitation. They sent me away and left me with nothing. And for a long time, I had a hard time dealing with that and dealing with that within the church and seeing that with other people within the church, how we deal with wrongdoing. And it's not necessarily rehabilitation, but more so retaliation and just casting people out. And that's not love, in my opinion. So
absolutely not.
It kind of formed a real care and concern for people and seeing people where they are and seeing their needs and meeting their needs in the midst of their situation, not judging, pointing fingers in the midst of their situation, but really addressing the need and restoring them. I'm just all about seeing people grow. And part of seeing people grow is being able to get down to their level and get in the dirt with them. Because, I mean, growth starts in the dirt. So if I'm not willing to get down in the dirt and I'm always looking down, hovering over, then I'm not going to be able to see you grow and help you grow. So there's that piece of getting down in the dirt and getting messy. And I feel that that's how that really formed that experience really formed or helped me in my ministry, just being able to see and understand that once you're down, you're not totally out, and there's always hope.
Absolutely, and there's no one that needs their church family more than someone who's going through a situation like that. So if you're 17, 18, you're a young father, you're dealing with building a family, raising a child, that's actually when you need your pastor the most. That's when you need your church and church family and church school family the most. So that must have been a difficult situation for you, especially coming from a pastoral family.
Yeah. And then there's that whole dynamic of your parents being your pastors and your parents. And they're going through that whole dynamic of how do I handle this? Because they're pastors and then they're your parents and they're trying to be your parents first, and then they have to go back to the church and be pastors and then be consistent across the board. So it puts them in a place where it's very difficult as well.
Absolutely. So to kind of recap, you went through the system. You were an excellent athlete. You did well in sports. You played basketball. You played track. You ended up raising your daughter, starting out a little bit younger than many of us. You were able to overcome some of the things that were parallel to that experience, i.e., losing your spot at Crawford and some of the things you had to do to get back in the goodwill of the church, quote unquote. It took you an extra year to finish your high school education. Tell us about how you ended up at Oakwood and how you ended up playing basketball for the Ambassadors.
So ending up at Oakwood, after high school, I said, once I graduated from Crawford, I was like, I'm not going to another Adventist school. So I was anti-Oakwood. I had scholarships out at the wazoo to go to Oakwood because my grade point average was great. And I was just determined not to go because I didn't want to be locked down, bondage. So I decided to go to a public university. I went to Windsor University in Windsor, Ontario. That's right across the border from Detroit. And I was there for 2 years. My first year I ran track, and my second year I walked onto the basketball team. And, I mean, that whole experience there was me, I guess, just lashing out, just doing everything I wanted to do. And at that time, my academics suffered. So it got to the point at the end of my second year where they sent me a slip that I had to withdraw because of my grades. My grade point average was I think it was a 1.9, 1.7 or 1.9. And I had to write a letter to get reinstated. I had to get some recommendations to get reinstated. And I was nervous about the whole situation. I didn't tell my parents. They didn't know that I had gotten kicked out. So I had my coach write me a letter and all those things. So I got back in, but I'd also applied to Oakwood at the same time and saying, okay, if this doesn't work out, then I'll just go to Oakwood and just change my entire environment and try to do it right this time. So we were actually moving my sister down to Texas, and on the way back up, we stopped at Oakwood, and we sat in Mr. McCracken's office. And my dad and him had been colleagues for a while, so they were talking, and they had gone over my file a while. And that's when my parents had found out that my grade point average was so bad. And so my dad was real upset in that meeting. But it was, really grace that I got into Oakwood. With a 1.7 GPA, I came in on academic probation. My first semester, I had a 3.6 my first semester. So the ability was always there, but it was just I just kind of slacked off because I was in like an I don't care mode. I was going to do what I wanted to do. And
right, you had to get the rebellion out of your system.
You had to get it out. I wasn't really failing, but I was just doing the bare minimum. And in the program I was in, the bare minimum wasn't going to cut it. So I was just getting by, just scraping the surface. And I know better than that, and that's not my trend throughout my whole academic career. I was the majority of my career, I was at the top of my class. So it was out of character. So something was wrong. So I realized and recognized that something had to change. So when I got to Oakwood, I was, a freshman again, but I was older than most of the new freshmen. So I didn't really mix with them. I was more so to myself, and I was in my books, and it just transitioned for me when I went to Oakwood.
listening to the Lance J Radio Show on Advent Sports Network.
What was the experience like playing for the Ambassadors? When I went to Oakwood, I graduated from Oakwood. To provide context, I graduated from Oakwood in 2000. So when I was at Oakwood, the Ambassadors were terrible. They were, I remember specifically 3 or 4 people that were good players on the Ambassadors. At the time, Coach Roddy and Mr. Roddy was the coach of the team at the time. He wouldn't let you play intramurals if you were an ambassador. You had to dedicate all of your time. Intramurals was kind of at its zenith at my time at Oakwood, and intramurals was much more popular than ambassadors games. You would go to an intramurals game, and if they were playing on the full court, you could easily see 1,500 people if it was a really good intramurals game.
You're right.
On the flip side of that, you could go to an ambassadors game on a Saturday night, and if there's something else going on in town, you might go to an ambassadors game and only 600 or 700 people at an ambassadors game. And I know a lot of people that quit the ambassadors so that they could play intramurals because they felt that intramurals would be more interesting. But over the years, Oakwood really developed their program. Gentlemen like yourself, I know Rupert, Ronnie, and Reggie Bushner. I know those guys. I know the Dogettes. I remember all of them as young people growing up in Allegheny West Conference. Oakwood had some really good teams and competed in some strong leagues and was successful. What was that experience like for you personally?
Well, for me personally, coming in as a Canadian, that's one strike against me. So my first year, I didn't play. Like, I tried out, and they had all their spots filled. So it was myself and another guy. They put us on the side. And honestly, when I got there, I really didn't have time to, just go to practice and not, I wasn't going to do that. I had too much to do. And so I just left it alone, and I stuck with intramurals. And it was, I think, my third year, Roddy was like, "Why aren't you playing?" He asked me why not I playing, because I was killing in intramurals, doing what I love to do. And that was when I transitioned and joined the Ambassadors. So, I always had a good relationship with the guys on the team. And it was kind of different because even when I was on the team, I was older than most of the guys. So I was more so in a leadership mentor, that old guy who comes in type role, guidance and things. I was how old
were you, Jason, when you were playing for the Ambassadors?
When I got in the Ambassadors, I think I was 23, 24. Yeah. Okay.
So you were physically and mentally more mature than most of them.
Yeah. So these little guys are coming to me, and I was playing like I've been playing. So I was kind of like a forward. I was stronger. Just smarter in certain ways, and it was a different game for me. And me coming from a background where I played in Canada and playing with a bunch of white guys, and I was the one black guy, it's a different kind of game. So coming down to Oakwood and playing that game was totally different. I'm used to a system. We do, you move the ball, you cut and dive. Oakwood was a little bit more free-for-all, not really structured. So it was different for me personally because, I enjoy team ball. That's what I grew up in, and that's what you thrive in because you help everyone around you. So it was trying to bring that to the team and still, just be a part, just still try and fit in as well.
What was the level of success that the team had while you were playing for the Ambassadors?
Well, my year we went to, I think it was the semifinals in the national championship thing with the NIA.
Division 3,
yeah. So they had won it my first year, my freshman year when I didn't play. That was the first year they had won. They got into the league and they had won. And so my last year, we were doing well. We started out struggling because we had a lot of newer, younger guys. And throughout the season, we grew and got better and better. second half of the season was better, but when we got down to it in the playoffs, it was just mental mistakes. It showed our age showed, the age of the team showed in just mental errors, little things, and that's how we ended up losing. But I mean, it was a good experience for me. I mean, when I got to Oakwood, I said before I leave I wanted to win a championship, and my last year was my only chance to do it. And I mean, I got close to it, didn't do it, but I mean, the experience was great itself. I mean, the bond that you share with those guys, I mean, you'll never lose it. It's just, I mean, a brotherhood basically that lasts forever.
Absolutely. So for those listening to the Lance J Radio Show, I'm here talking with Minister Jason Bulgin. He's kind of reminiscing about his time suiting up for the Oakwood Adventist University Ambassadors and his experience just getting there as being a little bit older than some of the other 18, 19-year-olds that were on the team and really being a leader, talking about his experience as a whole. I want to fast forward to the testimony part, and I'm just gonna set it up, and I'm gonna get out the way and let you tell your story here. But you were in a devastating car accident that could have easily taken your life, and you were spared, and you went on to really get involved in music and evangelism after that. Tell my audience about that car accident and that day and the circumstances and how God spared you.
Well, it was a time it was May. Graduation got postponed because during that time we had some really bad tornadoes down in Alabama. So graduation got postponed, and I ended up going home instead of staying for graduation and making all my family change their plans to come. So I said, I'm just going to go home for that weekend. So it was basically my graduation weekend, end of May. I went home, spent it with my family, and was getting ready to do the job search and, put the resumes out there and see where I was going to end up and start working. So I'm headed back to Oakwood. It was a Tuesday night. I like night driving, so I got on the road maybe about 9, 10, and was heading out towards the Windsor-Detroit border, or Sarnia border, and I was cruising, listening to an audiobook, a book called The Shack. I don't know if you ever read that book. Great book. But I was listening to that as an audiobook, just chilling on the road, cruise control. Out of nowhere, a deer appears, and because I was just so relaxed, feet kind of tucked under the seat, I just tried to swerve and avoid it, ended up going into the ditch. I remember the car flipping maybe 2 or 3 times, and then I blacked out. Come to find out that I went onto the other side of the highway, got ejected out of the car through the windshield, my body ended up landing on the other side of the road. This is like 11:30, almost midnight at night, and this is a truck route. I'm laying out on the road unconscious, and no one's around, pitch black. My car was black. So once the lights got out, I'm in the middle of nowhere, laying out on the road, just face torn by the concrete. I had a punctured lung, fractured a couple ribs, had big contusions on my legs, just glass in my hands, arms, all over my body, my back. It was just really, really bad. And apparently a cop just happened to be passing by, he said, and called the emergency services. I remember waking up in the ambulance and just giving my parents' phone number and giving my aunt's phone number and knocking back out. And it was really scary because, being an active person, being someone who is, an athlete, being in sports, that feeling of being laid out on a stretcher and not being able to move your arms, move your legs, that's scary.
Sure. Scary
feeling. Because, that's your livelihood. That's how you stay in shape. That's how, that's where you have fun. That's your pride and joy. So going through that and feeling that feeling, it was real scary. But when I got in the hospital room, I've always been a person with a positive outlook. So it was my it was my goal in this whole thing just to stay positive. So I got in there. I mean, I just started chronicling the whole experience, my recovery experience. I was smiling throughout. I was sending people pictures, posting them on Facebook, and just writing daily blogs of how I was feeling and just what I was experiencing, telling the story, and just really letting people know how to go through the restoration process. Because,
Sure.
I mean, we've all been through something that has torn us apart. We've all been through something that has left some scars and, done some damage. So my thing was just to continue to smile through it and change my perspective. Don't look at the scars, but look at the healing process and how he's putting it all back together. I mean, I have plates and screws all throughout my face. I fractured my jaw. I lost a tooth. I mean, there's just scars all over my face. But even now, if you looked at me, it just looked like I got in a bad fight or I have a birthmark or something. But what I looked like then and now is totally different. And it's honestly only the grace of God why I was restored the way I was. And, I mean, it just birthed this whole thing of living on purpose. And with this live on purpose mantra that I have now, I just making the decision daily just to walk in God's calling for me. And that's for everyone else that I come in contact with, just encouraging them to tap into the purpose that God has for my life, for their life, and just living it out to the fullest. So, I mean, not looking way down the road at 20 years from now, but daily, just dying daily and making a decision every morning to live on purpose and walk in his will, putting my will aside, putting all what I want aside, and just trusting him. I mean, even now in my daily life, God deals with me in a way where, I mean, he'll show me where he's going to take me, but he won't show me how. So it's always, every day is a faith walk. I gotta trust him. I gotta just keep prayerful and rely on what he's shown me, because what he's shown me is something great, something awesome. But if I deviate and if I fall short and if I get weary and get discouraged, I mean, I'm never going to get there, because I'll keep on repeating the same lesson over and over again. So it's just daily, just trying to trust him and just live on purpose.
So it is, I'm very good friends with your older sister, and she says that when you went through that experience, it's almost as if the Lord switched you out. Like there was a different person that came out of that hospital that went into the hospital. She often says, she's like, my brother looks different, he talks different, he thinks different. How are you able to have such a positive perspective going through all of that physical pain and going through the rehabilitation?
I just had to tell myself it's working for my good, basically. I mean, that really sums it up. I mean, I don't ever want to you have those people in your life that are the ones that drain you, are always complaining about a circumstance. Something is always going wrong, and that person is one who you don't really want to be around. Their circumstance drains you and your demeanor, and it just sucks you dry. So my thing going into it and coming out of it is, I mean, I want to be the light for those around me. I want to be the hope for everyone around me. I want to be able to tell my story and inspire someone else to, I mean, keep going, keep pushing, keep pressing. I mean, I was always, a positive, always kind of optimistic about situations. But this whole experience with the accident, it transformed it into it added that spiritual connection, that spiritual tie, where I knew God was really at the source of it and at the source of sustaining me and keeping me here and putting that will and that drive in me to, stay positive and also to help others.
Wow. What an awesome and amazing, just an awe-inspiring testimony. Jason, that's just, I'm kind of at a loss for words to hear someone. I've talked to people that have gone through various things. Those that listen to the show know that I went through a health crisis. I talked to people that have dealt with cancer. I've talked to people that have dealt with other personal issues and overcome. But I don't know if I've talked to anyone since I started doing this show that was so quick to move forward from something that really changed your facial structure and changed your life and changed perspective. So that's such a great message, and really why I want to continue to do this show and do this podcast to help people like you tell that story and just get it out to inspire as many people as possible. There's a cohort of individuals that they're not going to hear this message if you're on a pulpit preaching it. Right. But if you're speaking in some type of sports forum or some type of forum that can parallel to events that they have interest in, they can pick up that testimony and kind of remember it and carry that with them. And what you're doing is just really amazing and off the charts. Kind of to wrap us up, Jason, tell us about what are you doing now? I mean, what's going on up in Cleveland? What are some of the ministries that you're involved in? Is there anything that you're promoting? I know that you do a lot of music, you preach. Anything going on that you'd like my listeners to look up on the web or any video information that you'd like them to pull up on YouTube, or do you have your own personal page?
Well, actually, I do. Actually, out of this whole accident experience for me, I was able to write a book about the whole experience that is entitled 25 and Counting. I was 25 when the accident happened, and basically I see each year as a mile marker, and I wrote 25 almost like daily diary or devotional thoughts that brought me through, basically. So that's the 25 and Counting is a collection of those thoughts, and I think it will really speak to youth and young adults in terms of it's an easy read, and it's just relatable. It's just, I'm not trying to be lofty in my language. I'm not trying to be all outside of the box. I'm just being real about how I was feeling, what I was going through. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, just really trying to connect on that end. So I have the book 25 and Counting. My personal website is www.janthonybulgin, JANTHONYBULGIN.com. And there you can find music. I've released a Love Letters EP. Even through this whole experience, it transformed the way I think about God and how I talk to him. So out of that birthed some songs about just being intimate with God as a man and trying to break that barrier. I'm still in the process of finishing off that book. It's called Love Letters, Talking to God. And it's breaking down the barriers of how men interact with God and having that open love relationship where it's not necessarily taboo, because most of us see God as a man, and having that unrestricted relationship and speaking of how we love this man can be awkward, especially with what's going on right now. So it's trying to break down that wall and make it the norm to be able to say we love God, we love our brothers, we love each other, and being able to be there as a strong support system, because I feel that is really missing with all the other stuff that's happening and what has become quote unquote taboo and been a barrier for us.
Well, there's nothing more galvanizing, and there's nothing that kind of personifies leadership and can shape the will of individuals more than a man who stands out there and says, I love Christ and I'm unapologetic about my relationship with Christ. And I don't care what you think. I don't care if I'm the only person standing here praising and dancing and singing, but I'm going to praise, I'm going to dance, I'm going to sing, I'm going to tell the world that I love Christ. And I don't care if you don't like it.
Right.
You may look at me and think that I'm insane, and maybe I am, but you're not going to separate me from my love for Christ. And I had to go through an experience not as complex as yours, but I had to go through a near-death experience to get to that point. So I really feel that your book will resonate with a lot of my listeners. Where can we get it? Is it on iTunes? Is it downloadable on your website?
It's downloadable on my website. We mail out hard copies, signed copies. It is on iBooks as well. And everything is basically through the website. Got to connect with me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those means of social media. and you can find that all through the website. There's links there. You can click on them, click follow, and we'll go from there. I mean, I'm just looking to get out there, share the story. I got some things coming up in the fall, new school year, going to visit some other schools down in a school down in Arkansas and some other things. I'm just excited to share my story and not and show how it connects to the Word, show how it connects to what Jesus went through. I mean, we oftentimes separate so much what happened back then to what's happening today, when in actuality we're just repeating it. It's all repeating itself. So it's just trying to bridge that gap and show that your life is relevant, what you go through is relevant, and it's no different than what Jesus went through and conquered. So you can conquer it too.
Well, thank you so much, Jason, for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure having just that energy and that fire that you have. I mean, just to see someone on fire for Christ, it inspires me. I know it'll inspire our listeners. For those listening, check out janthonybulgin.com, read his book, listen to his music. Shout out to Kim Bulgin, Jason's older sister. Check out the God Chose Me album. I believe that's www.kimberlybulgin.com. Check out both of these young people representing T-Dot, representing our church. These are just good people. Go and look their stuff up. Thank you very much, Jason, for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure to have you. You know, God bless, and we look forward to talking to you down the road and just watching your ministry explode in Cleveland and beyond.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, and blessings to you.
You are listening to the Lance J Radio Show on Advent Sports Network.
The invisible man, Klay Thompson?
Yes, even the bum Klay Thompson who did nothing and still has a ring. Him, that guy.
You already just called him. I'm glad you called your man a bum. But let me just respond to a couple of things, James. I mean, one, we talked about, injuries happen. I think Ian said injuries are part of the game. Injuries happen. Think in history, in the entire history of the NBA, name me a team that was in the finals that not only guys were hurt or gimpy, we're talking about season-ending injuries. Name me one team where two of their top three players were subjected to that, and two All-Stars.
Oh, I agree. I mean, that's why we're all praising LeBron for his greatness.
I can't disagree with that statement, but the only thing I can say is the comparisons that you were making earlier to Dumars and Pippen, that's not that squad. So
but Kyrie's a pretty good player. I mean, he is. Love himself. Talks about how great he thinks Kyrie is. So I think he's probably a top, at this point, Kyrie's probably a top 10 to 15 player in the NBA, and Kevin Love at his best is probably within that same exact category. So we're talking about major firepower out of your lineup. I'm not making an excuse, and I'm not saying that even if those guys would have been there, it would have been a guaranteed win, even though I think it would have. I'm not trying to say that here. I'm just saying that
it would have been different.
You can't ignore the fact that two All-Stars were not on the floor. That's the only reason I could have asked you. I'm not saying that they don't deserve it. They certainly deserve it. They had a great year. They went wire to wire. I respect that. But they kind of didn't have to play the team that they should have had to play.
They played every other team that was in front of them.
Yeah, but it don't matter. The championship game is the only one at the end of the day that, to me, that really matters. You can go through, it's like the East team. They can go through weak teams all day. But if they get in the championship round and knock out a big powerhouse team like Golden State or Spurs or somebody like that, you're going to get props because you knocked off the best.
But Alan, let me just ask you this real quick. So I hear your point, but what I'm saying is, can I also use your point against you to say, well, you all beat a Hawks team that Kyle Korver, who was an All-Star, was injured? Like, they went at full strength. Do I put an asterisk next to the Cavs' victory in the Eastern Conference Finals?
No one cares about the Eastern Conference Finals,
just a part of the game.
Yeah,
but I understand what you're saying, but you can't use that statement just because when it suits you. You know what I'm saying? Y'all played teams that have been injured too. Everybody did. The Hawks
if you're going to compare Kyle Korver to Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, then this is not a silly conversation.
An All-Star. Was he not in the All-Star game?
Man,
I watched it. I watched him play. Whether we think he was deserving or not is a whole other story.
Yeah, he did not deserve to be in the All-Star game.
It's called privilege, my man.
Right. Very well put. Very well put, Alan. So it's obvious that the blood still boils pretty hot on these topics. I think that we've come to a consensus as we're closing out a segment that LeBron's performance in the finals was epic. It was amazing. It was transcendent. We've all seen LeBron shrink. We've all seen LeBron shrink in moments, even with the 2 rings, even with the 4 MVPs. We've seen him shrink in big moments. And in this particular case, he left everything out on the court. I have a question for you, Alan, and then Phipps, you, to the victor goes the spoils, you can close us out. Alan, are you guys going to re-sign Kevin Love, and what position are you in going into next year? Are you going to be able to keep this core team together, and are you going to be back to contend if you don't sign Kevin Love?
Oh, yeah, man. One, I think it's a no-brainer. Kevin Love gets re-signed. I think it's a great decision. The only way I wouldn't make that decision is if you told me I could do a sign and trade with Portland to get Aldridge. And
Aldridge.
If I could get Aldridge, I probably would make that. That's what I would do. But notwithstanding that, give me Kevin Love, re-sign him, because we really found out where he's valuable. Kevin Love isn't going to be always the most valuable player, and now you see there's a reason why David Blatt during the season would sometimes play Tristan Thompson in the fourth quarter, not Kevin Love, because when you want to go with a high-octane defensive team, you want to have Tristan Thompson out there. But when you need scoring, like when we needed against Golden State, Kevin Love would have been beautiful to have in that series. So I think we re-sign him. I mean, all indications are he's coming back. He said it over and over again in the media. People keep making up these fantastical stories that he's going to this place or that place. I'm not saying he's not going to, but a guy that's coming off of a torn arm or shoulder who can re-sign for the most money and be in the best position to win, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you'd be an idiot not to do it. And the rest of the team, I mean, they're going to get Tristan back. He's represented by Rich Paul, which is also LeBron's agent. They're all boys. They're cool. No doubt about it. Tristan's going to get re-signed, probably $12, $13 million. And then Shumpert, they're going to talk to him. I mean, I hope they can keep him. But now there's even talk of the Cavs trying to maybe go after Joe Johnson with.
That would be a terrible move.
No, I think it'd be a great move. That shooting guard without a lot of responsibility, someone who can spot up. He's tall. He's 6'8". He's long. I think it'd be a great pickup. But I think we'll feel like this. Long story short, I think we're going to be in a great position next year. I think we'll come off on fire. This year we started off real slow. We were 19-20 at one point before we went on that big run. So I think we'll come back strong, man. And I think these guys are going to be hungry, they're determined. The city's going to ride with the team. And as long as we don't suffer any major injuries, like I said, I think that parade's coming down Euclid.
Phipps, final word. What was it like watching Curry and Iggy and Clay hoisting the O'Brien?
Oh, man, it's a great feeling, man. But the bottom line is I loved watching them during the year. They had so many highlights. If you watch that team from start to finish, there were so many games that they were supposed to lose, but anybody just stepped up to the plate. And for me, that's a great feeling when you know that you have multiple players on your team who are willing at any time to step up and contribute. So I'm looking forward to next year, too. So go Warriors. That's all I got to say.
Gian, we're going to pray for you, man. The Knicks, man, this is a Christian radio station, but my goodness, I mean, the Knicks, they could have drafted Justice Winslow, the star of Duke, and they drafted a 7'1" guy from Latvia or Lithuania or somewhere in Eastern Europe that weighs about 195 pounds. I don't know what you guys are doing. I don't know what Phil Jackson's doing up there with the Knicks. You guys rehired Isaiah. I guess you're in Giants football mode and not really thinking about the Knicks right now.
I mean, listen, I am in Giants football mode, but I will say this. I'm a true fan. So regardless, even though I've never seen the Knicks win in my lifetime, I'm still a Knicks fan. I just happen to love the game. So I'm going to still watch the NBA. I'm not going to not watch it, but, I mean, it is what it is. Hopefully the Porzingis pick, maybe Porzingis will be the next Dirk Nowitzki. You never know. I doubt it seriously, but
Or he could be the next Frederick Weiss and get postered on an international level at the Olympics by Vince Carter. We've all seen that dunk on a rotation on World Star Hip Hop and whatever. Again, talk a little bit about your blog before we get out of here.
Okay, I started a new sports blog. It's statmanlex.blogspot.com. Right now I'm running a series where I'm doing the top 5 at each position all time. Getting ready to actually post the best small forwards of all time. Of course, we just sneak peek. We just know LeBron is going to be at the top of that list.
Right.
But just check it out. Let me know what you think. It's a fluid situation. So if anybody want to post comments about what you think about it, I really appreciate it. It's not set in stone. So if you think that my top 5 centers, you have arguments to say why or why not they shouldn't be there, I mean, I could change it, but I just want people to kind of check it out, and I'll have more series coming up following. But again, that's statmanlex.blogspot.com.
No doubt. Check out my man, Gin Alexis. Always great to have you three in. We're going to have our football, NFL, and college 2-hour preview show. We'll definitely be bringing the three of you back in, talk a little bit of Ohio State football and how they're pretty much all they have to do is show up and claim their second straight national title. And then, of course, the Indianapolis Colts and their supremacy over the entire NFL. Great to have you guys on the Lance J Radio Show, and we'll be talking soon.
OH.
I.O., baby.
To the Lance J Radio Show on Advent Sports Network.
Keep in mind, Michael, it's our network and our show, so we're good.
Oh, I'm going to say it. Don't worry. I just feel like we're in an environment where it's gotten to a point where we're quick to call racism in a lot of situations where it's not necessarily racism, just because we kind of know it's a trump card we can play, where everybody's got to react. Like, perfect example, I'm in the Philadelphia area. Shady McCoy got traded to Buffalo. First thing he says is Chip Kelly's getting rid of all the good black players, kind of hinting that Chip Kelly's racist. Doesn't mention anything about almost all the players that he brought back in, say 85-90% of them are black. Chip Kelly addresses it directly in the media, just kind of says what he has to say and moves on. Shady gets asked a question. I don't want to talk about it anymore. You just randomly throw out race with no real foundation. Don't support your argument and then expect it to take. And that's just one example. It kind of, after a while, desensitizes everyone to us calling race. So I just want to make sure that if we're saying racism, that it's actually something that's racist.
So I think that's a good point, and I would agree. People do frequently cry wolf with racism. Everything's not racially motivated. Everyone that gets traded or cut or released in the sports world or even in your own personal world, if you don't get that raise, it's not necessarily because the company's racist. If you get a ticket, it's not necessarily because the policeman is racist. But the word redskin, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, my understanding of the word redskin, it's a pejorative word to describe a Native American based on the tone of their skin. And if you look at the logo of the Washington Redskins, it's kind of it's a picture of a profile of a stereotypical Native American individual. Now, I'm not Native American, but I can go back to if that, back in the days of Jim Crow, they had some terrible names for teams that played in the old Negro leagues.
You're absolutely
and
right.
I find those logos in terms offensive.
You're absolutely right. but I also saw the head of Native American Association sitting right next to Daniel Snyder at Redskins game having a good time. He didn't seem to be offended.
But does that give him, as a person does he represent the entire country? Does he represent the whole Native American population? I mean, just because they bought him off with some tickets, does that mean that it's okay? If you're an NFC guy.
If you're technically though, if you're asking that question, he kind of does represent them. That's kind of what his job is. To be the president of their association, represent their views and positions. And nobody was screaming for him to be put out of office. He was still in office.
But you being an NFC East guy, and I'm not. I'm a Colts fan. I live out on the West Coast. But growing up in the D.C. area, I remember watching Redskins games with my father, with my grandfather, who are Redskins fans, as well as my uncle. And they would actually when they would play the Cowboys down at Old Texas Stadium, they would have the shows where they'd have the Cowboys mascot would be a cowboy on a horse, and he would actually ride behind the Redskins mascot, and he would lasso the Redskins mascot and tie him up. That just seemed, maybe in 1983 when I was 5 years old, that was acceptable, but I think in 2015, I think it's an atrocity. We see, as black people, there are going to be some people that listen to the show that are going to tune out right about now. But as black people, we see the Dixie flag, we see the atrocities that are happening in our community. We see policemen targeting us for random search and seizure. We see policemen killing us while we're running away, shooting us in the back, shooting us 18, 20, 30 times. We see, hold on, let me finish. Just let me finish on one more point. We see terrible shootings that are racially motivated. We see states that have the Confederate flag in its entirety, or part of the Confederate flag, flying at their capital. We're frustrated with that. I think that racism and injustice anywhere is deplorable, and we need to work to move away from those times.
All right. Valid point. Now I'm going to say a couple things. First of all, we're talking about racially motivated shootings and things like that. Granted, police may have been a little trigger happy. Yeah, they may have. They probably were. Not saying they weren't. But exactly how many of those shootings happened while the victim was caught in commission of a crime or an act of violence? I'm pretty sure it's the majority of them, right?
I would say 90%, sure, the majority, definitely.
All right. Don't be a criminal, you don't deal with cops. Pretty easy.
This is Kimberly Bulgin, and you're listening to the Lance J Radio Show on the Advent Sports Network. Remember to check out my gospel music album, God Chose Me, on iTunes, Amazon.com, or on my website, www.kimberlybulgin.com, for songs that make it easy to put on your garment of praise. That's www.kimberlybulgin.com, iTunes, or Amazon.com for my gospel album, God Chose Me.